and she is a product manager in LinkedIn. Product manager is a very hot role. It's well paid, it's influential, but it's also very competitive. But she got it, she just got it. So let's hear her story and how she got the job. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So my story was born and raised in the Philippines, came out to the East Coast and studied economics, psychology, and data. And it was in an internship in my second year of college in this startup called MedGrocer in the Philippines that I fell in love with technology and the ability for technology to impact different problems. Specifically, very invested in how tech impacts problems in emerging markets. So since then, committed myself to the tech world and knew I wanted to be a product manager because, if I were to start something of my own as a CEO, I think it's important to think about the product and think about the users, know how to communicate with all these different stakeholders. So after college, I was lucky enough to be part of this fellowship program called Kleiner Perkins. Kleiner Perkins Fellowship. So I was paired with a startup called Ripcord and did product work for them. So Ripcord was an enterprise company. Wore a lot of hats in there. It was a robotics digitalization company, so working in software, working in hardware, etc. Really fun time. Also simultaneously, I wanted to plug myself into the emerging market scene. So I worked for this startup called Kumu, which is like a super app for the Philippines. So that was exciting seeing the consumers. That was before I got my job at LinkedIn. Unfortunately, had to leave Ripcord due to visa reasons and had to leave Kumu because a lot of the team moved to the Philippines, which makes sense. Like a lot of operations should be there. After that, was employed momentarily in this coding bootcamp while also job hunting. So I knew that I still wanted to take this PM path. Went through the arduous job hunt process, and then found my job at LinkedIn.
And you just said that you have a crunch in your visa situation. So how long did you get your job? Like how long is this gap for?
It was about 2.5 months of job hunting while also doing part-time work in this coding bootcamp.
So 2.5 months looking for a job, and that's very competitive. Tell us a little bit more about the interview process or the preparation.
It was hard. So the biggest pushback that I was getting was I was a year out of college. I was a junior PM and I was competing with other senior PMs, other people with more experience. And so I had to make the argument that, I was working for 2 companies at the same time. I am very invested in growing and have this very hustle mindset. But yeah, still a lot of pushback. What I think helped me, I'm going to say 3 things. One was practice a lot. So interview practice was, there's this platform called Stellar Peers. StellarPeers.com.
Can you spell it for us?
Sure. STELLAR. Peers, PEERS.
So if you're looking for a PM job, like go to that website, and that's interview preparation?
Yes, specifically for product managers. So you're able to schedule mock interviews with other product managers. You can read up on mock interviews as well. So really great platform. I maybe used the calendar a lot and had 30 mock interviews with all these new people that I met. And it was cool because I made friends. So yeah, practiced a lot. Second was I found interesting ways to get a hold of the people that made the hiring decisions.
So what exactly?
I'll explain that. So when you're job hunting, you're talking to recruiters. You're also talking to hiring managers, etc. What I found was that in bigger companies, at least, recruiters gave me that pushback, like you're too junior. I don't know, might not be able to talk to you because I'm talking to other people. But when I went directly to the hiring managers and showed them my hustle and showed them, hey, I can communicate my value in this way, they were more likely to talk to me. And they're also they're the people that you need to build the rapport with, and if they like you, then you can bypass the recruiters, right?
That's a really, really interesting and useful tip.
Yeah, and I'll explain how I got my job at LinkedIn as a good example for it. So I went on LinkedIn. on the search bar at LinkedIn, I typed product manager LinkedIn, I'm hiring. And then it showed the list of people who had I'm hiring or we're hiring or hiring for PMs on their job description or job titles. So the first person that was there actually is my manager now. So I messaged her, read her articles, kind of understood who she was, and was like, hey, I can communicate, I can provide value to your team in this way. These are my skills, etc. I hope you consider me. She's like, okay. You have an interesting background, talk to my recruiter. So then when I talked to the recruiter, I was already vetted, right? The hiring manager already said hey, she's cool, talk to her. And then went through the process and she got my job. So that's a second tip is find creative ways to bypass or talk to the right people. Lastly, and I think this goes for any sort of job, or it's a great skill overall, is being able to tell your story in a very compelling way and in a consistent manner as well. So very early on, I had a document where I had my pitch, the pitch that I just told you about, tell me about yourself. Kind of making sure that you have a good narrative that you play out, and that you test it with different users until you find something that's true to yourself and that hits home with everyone else. But also make sure you have 5 stories.
5 stories.
Yeah, that answer behavioral questions. So the typical
Can you give us an example, one of it?
So I'll give an example of the question. So there's, what's your weakness? Tell me about a time you had conflict with someone. Tell me about a time you took initiative to do a project. One of the interesting stories that I had was when I worked on a project with my dad. So this is maybe around the when did you take initiative in solving a problem? Let's say that's the question. So I worked on a project with my dad because I saw that he had a problem of he works in the financial world in the Philippines, and he gets people to invest in or set up brokerage accounts. But what happens is he sends papers to you, for example, and then you have to print it out, sign it, fax it back to him, and then if there's a mistake, do it all over again. So in the Philippines, there was no online way to do that. You had to do it through paper. So it's Dad, you got to solve this problem. If not for the entire company, at least for you. So I worked with him. I built a little prototype and talked to some of his users, and then had a little website where people can simply just type stuff in, and then it prints out a PDF. And then so we tested that in one of his talks, or there were 300 people. So tested it out, but found out at the end of the talk that if her main metric was number of people who signed up, there were 0 people who signed up. So I was oh, that's so sad. But as a product manager, you want to understand the problem. You understand why did the product work as well as it should have. We found out there's a language barrier because it's in English, it should have been Filipino, and that little form was too long. So people were dropping off early. So iterated, changed it up, released it in another one of his talks, and we found that there were a lot of people who downloaded it more. So that was a really interesting project, and I think that hit home with a lot of my interviewers.
Nice. So for a project, it doesn't have to be a formal one. You can do it with your family. They just want to see your ability to approach it, right? It doesn't have to be a successful one. It could have a failure. And
I think it's even better if there's a failure.
Right?
Next episode, Mika will talk more about interviews, behavioral questions, and why she chose LinkedIn.